So yep, it sure is. Okay, so I'm recording this. Thanks for the reminder of that. Um, so you can access the interactive PDF and the PDFs on our website by going to there. You'll see the interactive PDF. You can go to the Coaches Outreach website. And on the website, you'll go to the Bible study tab and you'll look for the Lay Leader Portal tab. You click on the Lay Leader Portal tab and there's a password, and I have the password in parentheses there. It's co-lay leader, all caps. Type that in the password, and then you'll see the Zoom link for today's meeting. You'll see some lay leader essentials. You'll see if you're using Zoom, there's some Zoom tips. There's some lay leader notes that Mark has written out there. There's a PDF print version, and then there's the interactive PDF version, and then there's the audio files. If you use the interactive PDF version, it has the audio interactive, or it has the audio on the interactive. It is a larger PDF, and so it's harder sometimes to text that to people because of the size. But I believe you can email that. You just have a hard time texting it. So you
could text the link and they can jump on the link.
Text the link and then they can access it through the link. But they might have to have, I don't know, they might have to have the password, but I'm not sure about that.
Today's is that fish fry deal.
Sorry about that. So anyway, there's that. Any questions real quick on what we just said there? If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or to the office, and we can help you with that. Anything book related, if you have extra books or need books, please reach out to the office, but we really encourage you to use the PDF versions, either through the interactive or the regular or the printable PDF. The last thing that I have is one of the things that you will find. Hold on one second. Let me close that whiteboard. Okay, there the whiteboard goes away. There was a message there. It says I've been one of the things that I would recommend is that you use at the front. Well, I shouldn't say recommend. We want you to do one thing in either 0 week or week 1, depending on where you are. At the very front, you'll see a page like this. I hope that you can see that. You'll see that page. Up here at the top, it says, new to our Bible study, need to update your info. Have every one of your coaches on either 0 week or week 1 use the QR code and give us their information, their contact information. What that does for us as a ministry is it allows us to stay in touch with coaches. It helps us to keep in contact with them, to be able to get marriage retreat information, banquet information to them if they want to attend. So that's it's just a great way for us to interact with coaches and to communicate with coaches. And so please, 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 if you would, have all of your coaches fill that out for us. Like I said, it's just a great way. We will not solicit them in terms of ask them for money or anything like that. It's just a way for us to communicate with them about upcoming events. So anyway, that was the 2 things. Anything that I missed, Mark?
No. Oh, do you want to mention about making sure they fill out the rosters?
Yeah, that was it.
I mean, we can do it through that, but we just want to urge the importance of doing that so that we can keep better track of how many coaches are actually participating. We get asked all the time how many coaches are involved, and we can't give an accurate number without your help. So going through this process is really important.
Right. So that's the way to fill out the roster is through that QR code, because it's going to ask what school they're in, and then it's going to automatically tie that particular record to the study. And so anyway, Mark is right. It just helps us track when we're asked how many coaches we were at. And I guess the reason it comes up is this. We were asked how many coaches we have, and we have a guesstimation because we average we say about 8 to 10 coaches in a study. And if you have 700 studies, then you do the math on that and you add a 0, you got 7,000 coaches, correct? So the point is that, well, do we? Well, we sent out 6,000 books. We're done. Well, do we need to do 7,000 books? Well, if we do too many books and we get books left over, that's not a good resource. That's not a good use of our resources. And we just want to be we would love to have a science, wish we could come up with a science where if we need 7,328 books, we got 7,328 books and everybody got a book that wanted a book. And we're like, yeah. And we don't have any left over and you don't have anyone asking for some. But we know that that's not. So what we're trying to do is look at a way to go, well, we only have 2,000 coaches in the system. Well, we know we have only 2,000. We know we have more than 2,000 because we send out 500 books. And so it's just a matter of just being able to really get a better idea of how many coaches we have in the system and have in our studies. That really helps us with the science of, if they even call it science, of knowing how to come about with a good book count. So anyway, I'm rambling. I appreciate you guys being attentive to that. And there are a couple of quick questions here. It says, will each lay leader get the roster that is completed through the QR code? Great question. We can get that for you. All you need to do is reach out to Courtney, and she can get that information for you. It says, I've been able to text the interactive guide if I send it individually to a coach, but not as a group text. That is correct, because sometimes if you have someone who's not using an iPhone and they're using another type of phone, it kicks them all out. And some can accept big chunks of data, some don't. So yes, individually is probably the better way to do that if you were to do that, or send the link. You can send the link by text, or you can send the link by email. So anyway, I think that's all the questions that I see. And anyway, appreciate.
Mike, can I throw something in real quick on the database?
Yes.
In the code.
Yeah.
Well, just that also when coaches move from one study to another,
Yes.
then they move, and we don't have the same coach counted in 2 or 3 different studies, which also throws the total book count off for how many we need to order and that kind of stuff. So just a way to track our coaches as they move around and don't double count on that kind of thing.
And they can update their information through that QR code as well. So anyway, good comment, Mike. Thanks. Mark, I
have a quick question.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
I'm confused a little bit. My name's Stuart.
Yeah.
What is a coach? Is a coach the person who's taking the class? Because it seems like we're interchanging that as also the leader of the group.
No, the leader, the lay leader is the leader, and a coach is the coach who's attending the study. They're the ones that are coaching at the school. It could be the head coach, the offensive line coach, the basketball coach, baseball coach, track coach, volleyball coach. That's the coach.
But a coach won't be in 2 groups with 2 different leaders. Coach will only be in one group.
Would be in your group. So you're the lay leader. And
I think
I was just confused by the comment.
Yeah, what Mike Burke was talking about is there may be, let's say, Coach Smith is with ABC High School in the fall, and then he moves to CDB High School in the spring, and you've got both high schools have them on their roster. And so it throws our count off because it looks like we now have 2 coaches in our system, when in reality, we only have one that moved from one study to the other.
actually what happens in the we could go down this rabbit trail real long. What happens in the system is you're a coach, you sign up at your ABC high school. You move to another high school at some point and you attend a study. Well, we still have you in ABC high school. You can't be in two studies at one time. So what we need to do, but we've lost track of the coach who's at ABC high school. He's now at CD high school. So what we would love to have is him re-put his information in so that we can update it to have him now at CD high school. So we can keep tabs with them. Does that make sense?
My question, I was just confused if he was calling the
Sure.
leader of the coach. So
No,
it's all
that's-
good. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Anyway, with that, if you have any questions, don't hesitate. You can reach out to me, Mike at coachesoutreach.org, and I'll just email me and I'll contact you. So anyway, with that, Mark, I turn it over to you.
All right. I'm very, very excited about this study for a lot of reasons. And I'll start. The first is just purely personal and sentimental because it's the first study I ever wrote for Coaches Outreach. I've been doing this for 10 years. And this was the first one when Tommy brought me on that he said, just go ahead and start writing. And so I started writing, and with the amount of time, he said, we'd like to bring you on staff. And so going through this was really a heartfelt feeling of, sentimentality and appreciation. And it just so happened, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it just so happened that while I'm writing this study with all those memories, I was working with Tommy putting his autobiography together. So it gave me a lot of opportunity to speak directly to him and express my appreciation for taking a chance on this guy. But for those of you who are new, I'll just quickly cover. We have a philosophy at Coaches Outreach, and that is that we like to cover a lot of different books, Old and New Testament, different kinds of books. Some are narrative, like the last semester in Judges. Some of them are epistles, like this semester. Some of them are more poetry, like we did Psalms not very long ago. And so we'd like to change that up because we hope that if you're with us long enough, every coach, every lay leader will have a feel of how to study not just that one book, but that kind of book. And that only enhances their broader spiritual life. So I like to kid around saying, if you're in church and maybe the pastor's not hitting a home run, that you're not dependent on that pastor for gaining spiritual truth. You can open that up, or you can do it on your own, in your own personal devotion time, and not feel like somebody has to take you by the hand and spoon feed the truth, because you've now developed a set of tools to dig into the word and extract the truth and learn how to apply it completely on your own. And that is a treasure for any believer. It's the best thing I ever got out of seminary. And so if we can bring a little bit of that to a coach and to a lay leader, we're just delighted to do that. So as I mentioned, this semester we're doing 2 Timothy. Let me just say a word about last semester. I don't know the last time I got as much feedback on a study, or maybe I should say as much rough feedback on a study as we did with our study of Judges. It was not all negative. I had a bunch of feedback that said, man, I've heard a couple of Sunday school stories like, Gideon and a few others. But boy, I never really understood what Judges was all about. And I dug into it like I never have before, never heard it preached like that before. And it was really meaningful. That was not the majority. I did hear some, but that was not the majority. And so if you are among the majority, I just want you to know, I think the testimony of those who've been around for a little while will tell you the couple of rocky parts that we hit, couple of potholes, were the length of the passages were honestly longer than I like to see. We do encourage you to read the entire passage each day before you have your discussion. And unfortunately, because of the length of each passage every day, we kind of put you guys in a bond. And because you're kind of left with, all right, do we have a very short discussion time, or do we just skip it, skip the reading and jump right into the questions? And so I apologize for putting that extra burden, and decision making in front of you pretty much every week. I love Bob for doing the study. It really helped me out as I was working with Tommy on his autobiography, to have someone else write the study during that same time. But I just want to let you know, it was a difficult study for a lot of people. And I don't want you to feel if your study had a hard time with it, I want to give you a little bit of context, and that is you're not the only ones that had a hard time. And I believe that this coming study will be a major pendulum swing, in that the passages are going to be much, much smaller, probably 2 or 3 verses, maybe no more than 5 on any one given day. It'll be a lot easier to follow the train of thought, because instead of each week starting with a whole new historical context and all that, it's going to be one streaming flow of thought from one author to their reader. So I welcome any feedback that you want to give, but I felt like I needed to say that up front. We don't like to burden you guys with that, and I will do my best to not let that happen again. Going into this study, some of you may have been around when we first put it out in 2014 in the fall. One of the things that we've done is we've completely revised it, because when it came out then, some of you might remember where you had day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and then 4 pages of study notes when you flip over that section. We had to redo this whole thing because we're going to continue with that side-by-side format. So you'll see a whole bunch of things have changed in that way. Some of the wording is a little different. We've revamped the questions. They're a little bit easier to understand. Like I said, that was my training wheels. So I do hope that this one, 10 years later, after doing about 20 studies, it ought to be better. If it's not, that's on me. But one of the things I wanted to just cover a few things that are different and call your attention to them. And part of me, I lost my old glasses, so normally it wouldn't be this hard, but I picked up this pair, which is 6 years old. And so if you look at me straining like somebody who's blind, that's why I'm struggling with this pair until I get a new one. But in this particular study, compared to the first study that we did was focusing on the coach and their relationship with the athlete. This whole year, we're focusing on mentoring. And so the focus is not excluding the coach-athlete relationship, but really driving home the need for coaches to be mentoring other coaches. And so one of the things you'll see, we've got at the front, we've got 0 week, we've got 4 pages that are dealing, we put everything on those 4 pages. We no longer have the map in the back, we put it up front. So all that kind of reference material, you can go through that all in one spot. We haven't added a lot to the reading of 0 week. We've just put in other things in that same space. So we still have the timeline. We have the the chronology there as where that fits in the New Testament. But we also added what a number of you have been asking for, and that is a prayer box. Typically, when you get together for 0 week, we have it on 2 pages, and there's no place to put in prayer requests. Most of you, when you start off 0 week, you've either left, in this case, 3 or 4 months since your last study, or when we get to the spring, you've probably not met for 1 or 2 months. So you've got a lot to catch up on, prayer and praise. That's why we wanted to add a big box there for you so that you can get off to a good start and say, okay, where are we, guys? Where do we need to be praying? What's changed in your life? Let's talk about that, because with 0 week, it doesn't take as long. But this way you can make the most of that kind of spare time by doing a lot of catch up that you don't normally need to do during the course of the semester. One of the other things that you'll see there is I explain this semester, we don't have your regular true coaching stories. Some of you were here the last time we did this, and I was asking you to talk to your coaches, and they came up with a lot of wonderful tributes. The reason we have those tributes is because we want to highlight, again, the value of mentoring. So if you turn, for instance, to page, let's see, I think it's page 16. No, let's see here. Let's go to page 22. If you open up to page 22, some of you may already have covered it in your group, but I don't think too many of you are up to week 2 yet. And it just says a tribute to Coach Kindle by James Mills. So this happens to be written by one of our, he's a study participant actually with Tommy Maxwell, but he also was a manager for the Houston Astros. And now he leads his own study as well. And I talked to him about writing a tribute, and he was delighted to do this because this coach, Coach Kindle, was influential in his being inspired to go into sports and the way that he would lead. That's what we want to see happen as a result of this study and next semester. I was with a group yesterday morning, and when they heard what the study was like, they just finished reading 0 week, and they said, hey, I've got an idea. A lot of us don't have anyone that we're mentoring, and a lot of us aren't being mentored by anybody. Let's make it a group goal. This wasn't coming from me. This was coming from one of the coaches in the group. He said, let's make it a group goal and a prayer request that by the end of this semester, we are involved in at least one of those relationships where we are either mentoring somebody or being mentored, and maybe possibly both, because everybody needs both to get to their full level of maturity. So that's why these things are in there, because we want to inspire people. We want to remind them of the power that a mentor can have, the influence, the modeling that a mentor can have. And so with that, I'll bring this up at the end, but if any of your coaches have talked with you, or in the course of this study, they say, yeah, there is somebody in my life, I would deeply appreciate your having them write me that story in the same form that they're going to find throughout this playbook. A couple of things before we get into the other ones. I want to start off with a correction. If you would turn to page number 6, it's in 0 week. And for the life of me, I don't know how this error got in there, but I can do at least the most I can to correct it. And we'll be sending an email about this. But if you look in the chronology for 2 Timothy, the first big number there is 4 BC. The next big number is 20 AD. And I do not know why the 4 is there, but I'll tell you where it belongs. It belongs in the beginning of the next number. So that should go from 20 AD to 40 AD. And then you skip over the next one, has 60 AD, and it's got an 8 after that. And that 8 belongs with the next 0, so it would say 80 AD. Did I lose anybody with that correction? It should go 4 BC, 20 AD, 40 AD, 60 AD, 80 AD, 100 AD. Because I got to be honest with you, even though I made that chart, I'm looking at that chronology when I first got the printed copy, and my head was spinning with both what it was supposed to mean and how it turned out that way. So hopefully you can just make that correction and not confuse your coaches. Couple of things here. I've got 5 points to cover, and then we'll take whatever questions. or if you ask a question on any one of these, just jump right in. You can let Mike know and he'll unmute you.
Mark, may I make a comment? Just
Absolutely.
a recommendation. In
Yes, sir.
future, when you put in QR codes,
Yes.
you also put in the link. Because
Okay.
if the guy has the book, all right.
Yeah.
If he wants to go to the link, if he's using a computer, he can't
Right.
hold the book up to the computer.
I see what you mean.
So
That-
and a
excuse
lot
me.
of the coaches that have the book and a laptop.
So
They
if
can't
on the,
figure out where that link is.
if here's what they can do is if they have the PDF, on the PDF,
but
all
they
they
won't-
have to do is click on that PDF. I'll just double click with their mouse or their finger on their
Yes.
on
I
that,
understand
and you
what-
know,
I understand what you're
on the
saying, Mark.
actual PDF, if they have a copy of the PDF, they can do that on the screen. But it's I get your
Most of the
point.
coaches don't want the PDF.
Okay, not a
So,
I'll tell you a quick, easy way for me to solve that. And I do it on occasion, but you've reminded me to do it, thoroughly and consistently. And that is wherever we have scanned this code, I'll just put a little footnote marker in there and they can easily go to the back of the book where we have all our end notes. And I will have the link posted right next to that number.
Okay.
How's that?
Okay. That's good.
Okay.
All right.
Because I don't
Thank
want to clutter. I don't want to confuse the page with putting a long, some of them are fairly long, especially YouTube.
Yes.
But I can do that. I'll make sure that I do that with the QR links.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
All right. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. So let me just talk first of all on when we look at the playbook, you'll notice we've removed at the end of each week on day 4, we've removed that box that says primary application. One reason why we removed that, there's a couple, but I think Scott Henderson is on the Zoom somewhere. I saw his name pop up. He and I were talking about this and we thought, let's not be redundant. We can use a little extra space on day 4 because it gets kind of crowded. We have a discussion question, primary application, the prayer box, and it kind of crowds out day 4. But what we can do is, and did do, is we added, if you look at the big picture, every single week, before you get into the study that week, the very last paragraph of every single week begins with, on a practical note, or this week, we will look at the practical application of, but we'll kind of set them up for, these are the practical application that you can have by studying this material this week. We put it right up front so that if a coach is wondering, is this worth my time? We get into their locker room. We go on the field with them and say, these are the things that we will be addressing this week. It will help you in these areas. And then when you get to day 4, our discussion question is directly related to that last paragraph when we ask, what are the things that hit home most? Let's just go at the end of week 2. In the discussion question says, in light of everything we've studied this week, how would you coach someone who felt like giving up rather than pressing on? And so we have them answer that question. That is the practical conversation. So it's not just one person writing down their application. It's the entire group talking about, hey, we've got, Jimmy is thinking about quitting. How can we apply these lessons to help Jimmy stay in the game? Let's talk about it. So we've taken away that box, but we haven't taken away the idea. We believe that we've enhanced the practicality of each week because we set it up with bookends, one on the front end, one on the back end. Of course, we have application questions throughout all 4 days, but we really want to drive home on the practical side of the Bible study. So we don't have those pages in the back either because they're writing them down. We don't have those same 2 pages that list all those practical applications. One of the things we found, you may have used it in your group. We found it was, for whatever reason, a lot of people were not using them. And so we thought, let's do something that everybody can use. Hopefully it won't take away from the ones who were using it, but we're hoping it will add to the ones that may have been overlooking that part. Any questions about that or comments? All right, let's go to the next one. Second one is why so little scripture per day? Certainly compared to Judges, we have a very small amount of scripture each day. And I am not here to promise you that we will only have this much each time. It is a little bit different. We talked about different genres or styles of books in the Bible. When you're dealing with an epistle, it's different than a narrative. With a narrative, you have to have a certain number of verses so that you can tell the story, at least a part of the story, and then draw truth from it. With a narrative, you can typically do 3 or 4 verses, and it's just speaking truth. And you've got to kind of break it down into smaller chunks. But you will find a significantly smaller number of verses every day. Like I said, sometimes it's not even an entire verse. Sometimes it'll be just a part of that verse. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But it will not be very long. There's a little bit of narrative you'll find on the front end where we talk about Paul and his life pre-Christian. And those are some of the longest verses. You'll see most of them are from Acts. Those are the longest ones that you'll find in the entire study. So even though you hit them on week 1, you won't see anything that long throughout the rest of the study. I already talked about the change in the True Coaching story, and that's going to cover both this semester and next semester. And then we'll get back to our normal True Coaching stories where we're just talking about moments that occurred in your life and lessons learned from those that can be passed on to inspire. Couple of controversial topics. They're not controversial as in it's going to cause a big split in the group, but every study has its own unique doctrinal things that do pop up a little bit more strongly than other studies. This particular one, and you'll find it when we get to 2 Timothy chapter 2, towards the end of chapter 2, and that is the issue of eternal security. Real simply, eternal security, sometimes it's summarized in 4 words, which is once saved, always saved. There may be some people in your study who have either never thought about that issue, or maybe they come from a church or just a background, family or whatever, that's a new concept for them. We try to break that down into smaller chunks when we get to those parts where there's some phrases in there. We can take a look at them if you want to, if anybody wants to, but the phrases are to emphasize the value of being faithful. This is the whole study in a nutshell. Is Paul is saying, look, God is always going to be faithful to you. There's nothing you can do to change God's faithfulness. He will never leave you. He will never walk away. He will keep up his end of the bargain, which is he will hold on to your salvation. You've entrusted that to him, and he will not fail. And then Paul says, on the other hand, we're not perfect. We will fail God. What he urges Timothy to do is to remain faithful. But he urges Timothy to remember God will never fail you, even when you fail him. He will not give up his side of this exchange of trust. You've entrusted him with salvation. He has entrusted you with living the Christian life. He will never fail you in his faithfulness to keep you in his family. We have a varying level of faithfulness in response, and he wants Timothy to live up in the most honorable way to remain faithful to the fullest. That's the whole message of Second Timothy is be faithful. Now he's talking about him as a pastor. You're talking to people as coaches and their calling. And that hits a lot of things. It's not only their coaching life, it's if they're married, it's their marital life. If they're single, it's being faithful as a single believer. There's a lot of areas of faithfulness that we will touch on. But that's the essence of this. And that's a lesson for all of us is God will remain faithful. The question is, will I? Will I be faithful here and here and here and here? And actually to grow into increasing faithfulness as God reveals how he wants me to follow him. But when you get up to that section, for people who have been raised or for whatever reason have an idea that, well, if I let God down, I don't know if I'm saved anymore. I can't believe I committed this sin. Is God going to, give me up, basically? Do I need to be saved again? And the answer is, if you have already entrusted your life to Christ based on the work of Jesus Christ and not ourselves, and you have trusted in Christ for your salvation, that is all you can do. He has already forgiven that sin or sins. Some people believe that if you commit suicide, well, that's a sin that can't be forgiven because you can't come back and ask for forgiveness. When Christ died on the cross, he died for all our sin, which, if you think about it, was already in the future. So any future sin that I can commit, the sin I'm going to commit later on today that I don't even know about, he's already died for that because I've trusted in him. That eternal security, I saw that question pop up. I believe it starts in week 6. Let me just check here. Yes, that is week 6, is that whole topic, the couple of phrases, is all covered in week 6. And if you have any issues, if things come up, I always say, feel free to get in touch with me. You can email me, text me. If you're doing a Zoom call or you just want to bring a computer, I'd be happy to join your Zoom and we could talk about eternal security. That may be, you might need to do that the following week in light of your conversations that come out of week 6. And that is okay. If you need to do that, that's fine. If you just want a little extra material yourself, please let me know, because I think this is one of the most critical things to understand is the security of our salvation. God does not ever walk away from his children. And we try to drive that home, because if anything, that should motivate us to greater faithfulness rather than like a yo-yo going up and down. I'm in, I'm out. It's, it's not like they talk about some theologians are like they're plucking a daisy. I'm his, I'm not, it doesn't work like that. When God brings you into his family, it's an eternal bond that he creates. It's an eternal life that has begun, and that eternal life cannot be controlled by us because we weren't the ones who provided it in the first place. It all comes from him. Any questions about that? Because that's a pretty big deal. Okay. The flip side of this is eternal rewards. And this issue came up if you were with us in the study of Revelation, because what Paul is going after with faithfulness is from the very beginning of 2 Timothy and all the way through to the end, he keeps reminding Timothy, if you are faithful, God will reward you in eternity. The reward is not our eternal salvation. That's already settled. What's not settled and what is in his hands are the eternal rewards that he will earn for his faithfulness. We can't earn salvation. We must earn rewards. And that's all going to be covered in that week 6. It'll be touched on in other places, but we'll hit it pretty hard there in week 6. We'll have a little chart there of the different kinds of rewards and the different ways that people earn that. But what a great thing to strive for not salvation, but eternal rewards. Last thing, the spiritual challenge of godly leadership, and we touched on this earlier, is number one, become a mentor. You've got coaches in your study, probably at least one or two, who are old enough that they are looked up to by the other coaches. And there's a passive kind of mentoring by example, but what we're getting at here is an active intentionality with their mentoring, where they not only want to model it, but they want to impart that through a relationship with one or two or more younger coaches. It will change their life, and it will certainly change the life of those being mentored. The other side of that is being what we will call a mentee on the receiving end. There is a lot of folks in your studies, they could gain a lot from humbling themselves and either approaching or maybe just simply responding to the invitation of an older coach to say, hey, if you want to meet once a week, let's do that. Let's form a relationship. Let's sit down and talk about some of the things, not just that will make you a better coach, but the things that will make you a better person that will come out in your coaching. A mentoring relationship is more character oriented than it is skills. And that's why we say some coaches can be a mentor, not just on how to snap a football or how to take a person down if you're a wrestling coach, but what's the attitude approach? How are you going about this? Let's look at it towards greater maturity. And then, of course, there's the issue of pursuing faithfulness, no matter what side of that you're on. That's all I've got to say about the new playbook. Are there any questions that maybe you thought of as you look at it? Something strikes you, a question, a comment, before we do a quick look into the future? Okay, let's jump into the future real quickly. We're doing, I want to just quickly review some of the resources. We have an audio book version. A lot of coaches don't know about it, but they're putting a lot of time on the road, and that will really help them catch up a little bit on the playbook if they can listen to it and then just maybe skim over the work when they're actually ready to sit down and answer questions. We have an athlete study, and I don't know that there's a better study to use to start an athlete study with than 2 Timothy, because it's all about having someone speak into your life. And if your coaches have not considered doing the athlete study, a sample of which is in the very back of the book, we offer it for free. That one week, week 1 is there as a sample, but all 13 weeks are there. Thank you for that question, TJ. All you got to do is go to the Bible study page, you go to athlete study, and you can download all 13. They're all set up as interactive studies. And unlike our coaches' interactive study, they're not nearly that long. So you can take all of them, send out either a link or send out the actual interactive studies themselves, all 13 of them, send it off to the kids' phones. And I always say, I would encourage you to encourage them to use the interactive, because any one of those students might leave their printed page at home, but they're like hooked up to an IV with their phone. They're not going to leave their phone at home. So you encourage the coaches, if they want to do this, just send out the interactive study. They can answer it all on their phone. When they come to the meeting, they open up their phone and they can have that conversation. Our writer does a great job, and the coaches who use it are really thankful. They're really appreciative of not only being able to lead that study, but for the bond that it creates between them and their athletes. Most of the times that the athlete study is used, it's done in the context of an FCA huddle, but that's not the only way. You don't have to do it that way. But if you've got coaches that are being stretched thin by preparing for both, one thing we've done with our athlete study is it's basically a no study for them. If they're involved in the coach's study, they've done all the preparation they need to do. they can just open it up and lead the conversation, because it's cookies on the lower shelf. So it makes it easy for them, and it's a perfect way for them to apply the lesson in the coaches study, which is start mentoring somebody. So here we have the tool for them to do it. One thing I did want to mention also, some of your coaches' wives, if they're married, they may not yet be involved in the reach. We want to encourage them to get involved. That's our outreach for coaches' wives. They meet once a month, and they have a study for themselves as applied to coach wives. The other thing is avail yourself of the lay leader notes. I kind of did a 30,000 foot overview today, but with the lay leader notes, we have about 3 or 4 lines of highlights for each week, just things to be mindful of and ways to kind of navigate possible sticky points. Want to let everybody know, I mentioned earlier, Tommy Maxwell has written his autobiography. Some of you may already have a copy of that. We are sending out a gift copy to every single one of our field reps and or lay leaders. When you get that copy, that will give you the opportunity to bring it into your meeting, and any coach that wants a copy of that, they're going to go through you, and we're going to ask you to let us know how many copies to send to you to give out to your coaches. I think they will love reading it. It's a very easy to read, but inspiring book to read. It's the title is Not So Fast, the story of Tommy Maxwell and Coaches Outreach. If you know somebody who would be interested in maybe donating to the ministry, we would be delighted to give you a copy to pass on to them. We have somebody who's underwritten the entire project. That doesn't mean we want to just have people throw these in the wastebasket. That would not be good stewardship. But if there's a value in you giving that book to somebody, we want to encourage you to give that book. So thank you in advance for reading through it and for inviting your coaches to read through it as well. It's an easy read. Within probably a month's time, that book will be in the form of an audio book. So if you want to read it while you're driving, you can do that. If the coaches want to just enjoy listening to it while they go on a long, trip to their competition, they can do that. They can just listen to it little bit by little bit. I think it'll make for a very enjoyable drive. Outside of that, let me just ask again, opening a session with Tommy Maxwell's prayer. There you go. He's got a prayer at the beginning of the book, and it alone will be inspiring to your coaches. Next semester, we will be studying the book of Esther, and we'll continue with the idea of mentoring. So again, if you've got coaches who have a significant mentor in their life, please encourage them. I always say you may not have a chance to speak at their funeral. You may not be there to speak at an award ceremony for that coach, but we've printed about 7,000 books this semester, which means that coach's thank you and acknowledgement of their mentor's role in their life will be probably have a larger audience than any other way that they could say thank you. And we want to encourage to give them that opportunity to let the world know how meaningful that one person's life and their commitment at a personal level was to the coaches in your study. Question came up about the reach. They meet whenever that group wants to meet. We don't have a set meeting day. So if you want to contact Ann Ryan at our, just send her an email, let her know that you're interested. She'll help you set up that time and that study, perhaps with other wives that are in your area. But we don't tell them when to meet because they meet all around the clock. Whatever works for them is best. Whatever day, whatever time, whatever place. We leave that up to the local group. Next fall, I expect we will be studying the book of Mark. I think we're going to call it The Greatest or something like that. And what we'll do is we'll pick up the book of Mark after Christmas at the beginning where Mark picks up at the baptism of Christ. And we'll go all the way, not to the end, but up to the point of the Passion Week, because we have an entirely separate study just to cover the Passion Week, crucifixion, resurrection, and beyond. So we'll cover, that part of Christ's life that's not covered by Christmas and not covered by Passion. And I might just throw out there, if there's a study you think would be very beneficial for us, please feel free to send me an email. Let me know. We don't have anything set in stone, and if we've overlooked something, I'd love to get your feedback on that. I went 5 minutes over. Sorry about that. Open up to you. Anything you've got to say. I like to just close with prayer, and then you're free to go or you're free to stay. And this is the time when you guys can share ideas with each other, share stories, something that might be meaningful to another group, something that's worked in your group or maybe failed in your group, and you want to save somebody else the misery. So let me just close in prayer.
Mark, real quick, and you might have said this and I didn't hear it. And forgive me. So next spring we'll be doing what study?
We'll be doing Esther, the book of Esther in the Old Testament. Okay. Any other questions before I pray? All right, let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for this time that we have to gather with about 70 of our lay leaders and field reps. And Father, I pray that as they go through this study, that it would be meaningful for them and for those that are around them, the coaches that are in their lives. And Lord, that through this study, we would see mentoring blossom throughout the entire Coaches Outreach Network and beyond. Lord, we pray that this mentoring relationship would have an impact on not only these coaches, but on the generations that will follow, because somebody took the time to take personal interest to help these coaches become the very, very best that they can be, both as a coach, as a person, as a believer, and as one who is an ambassador for your work in your kingdom. We commit this study to you, and we look forward to hearing the results of all that you have done in the lives of these men and women and in those that they serve. In Christ's name, amen.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Well
You're
done.
welcome. Stick around if you'd like to. Questions, comments, this is your time for conversation. Thank you all for committing a good chunk of your Saturday morning to being a deeper participant with what we do.
Mark,
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Stan. I'm new to the Coaches Outreach lay leader deal.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. I've been told that it's best to start like right at or just after Labor Day. So is that about right?
You certainly can. It's really up to each individual group. We let groups decide that. I know I sat in on a 0 week, like I mentioned just yesterday. Some groups might already be on week 2. Some groups like to finish up by Thanksgiving because, schedules get a little crazy. If you plan on going into the championships, as I know nobody would like to dismiss that possibility, but some have a little bit more reason to believe they'll be there than others. It all depends on your coaches and what works best for them. I will say this, the fall semester is a lot shorter than the spring. So some coaches will delay their spring start. Maybe they'll start in February rather than January, but I wouldn't want to see you get started any later than the week after Labor Day, because it starts getting kind of tight. Mike, do you want to add anything?
No, I'm sure that's what Marty Secord suggested. He thought that would be a good time to start. Starting sooner than that could make you end up too late or too early or whatever. I don't really know how it rolls out. I know it's 12 weeks.
Yeah, because in reality, Stan, it's 13 because if you count 0 week, it's 0 plus 12 more. And so if you plot that out on your calendar, you'll see in the spring it does get pretty tight.
Okay. Yeah, I think I may have asked a question about that. And I think maybe it was mentioned that I just include 0 week into week 1. But you're saying 0 week should be its own week.
Yes.
I would do that separately because especially if you're new, is your group new or has the group done coaches outreach before?
Have not.
See,
I would suggest that you do 0 week because that gets everybody in the mood. That gets everybody. It's a great opportunity to have them all go around the room and read it and get used to kind of interacting. It's just a great introduction for group dynamics just within the setting of a Bible
Absolutely.
study.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds
it's
good.
well worth it for you and for your group. And especially because you've never done it before. You may even want to take some time to walk through, in your case, what each week is going to look like. Open it up. Say on week, day 1, we're going to do this and set up how we're going to study this. Some groups, they assign each coach a day. The group that I was with is big enough. They assign 2 coaches for day 1, 2 coaches for day 2. And that way they kind of stimulate each other. It's all up to you. You may just want to take one question, but I think especially in your case or anybody starting brand new as a lay leader and as a group, definitely take the time to slow down and do 0 week, kind of set the course.
Awesome.
I saw Christian Gournay had a question or wants to make a comment about the value of mentoring. Did you want to jump in here, Christian?
Sure, Mark. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
I've been on the blessed end of a 26-year-long relationship with a mentor. And there's only one other relationship I've been in longer, and that's my wife. And I'm truly grateful. And Ben Cunningham and I started meeting in 1997, believe it or not. And I had kids, sent my kids to college. He sent his kids to college, married off his daughters, retired. We've done life together for 26 years. And I can't express how grateful I am that Ben's built in my life, not only from a spiritual standpoint, but just a friend standpoint. And he's my 3 o'clock phone call if I ever need one. And I'm truly, truly thankful for that. And I had the chance to share that with my Thursday group that does coaches outreach with Mark this past Thursday. And Mark, thanks for joining us. And and it was a nice surprise. Even though we thought it was next Thursday, it worked out great. But it was really fun to share that with the guys, and all those guys in that group know about that relationship, but I don't know that they know how deep it goes. And so I just wanted to express to you guys that if you're out there and you're available, go meet with a young guy like me, because it's invaluable.
Man,
Thank you, Christian. Thank you.
You bet.
Carter.
all I was going to say, back to Stan's point, there are things that happen throughout each semester. There's the fall break that I didn't know was coming, and so we're not meeting this week. Or, there's just different things from time to time that come up. And in the early part of the spring semester, sometimes there's a snow day, and so we don't meet that week. And so we did 0 week yesterday, and just throughout the past 20 plus years of doing this, the sooner you start gives you a little more freedom for those exceptions that are going to come along, Stan. And so it just gives you a little more wiggle room. And most of the coaches, when you say, gentlemen, I think we should get started this Friday at this time and looking forward to seeing you, they're all ready to go. That's part of taking the lead on that. Clear it with your AD or your head coach, but I've just found that gives you a little more wiggle room for those exceptions that will be happening from time to time.
Ssure. Thanks, Carter. And
Sounds
one of
good,
the other
Mike.
things that comes
Appreciate
up
it.
is you may find, and we don't recommend it, but if it does come up, there may be something that comes up in the conversation throughout the course of the study, and there's something so personal that you don't want to just cut it short and move on to the next question. And you want to be able to know that, hey, if we need to spend the rest of this week talking about what's going on in this program, in your life, and how this scripture impacts that. And we're going to come around that. We're going to pray about that. Sometimes those issues are so intense that it ends up, you don't finish and you've got to roll it into the next week. So again, if you start, the earlier you start, the more freedom you have to say, hey, no problem. We'll just pick up next week, rather than feeling like you got to rush through it to finish.
Awesome. I have another question.
Sure.
How do I get the t-shirt?
Mike,
I'll get you one,
No,
Stan.
we can check
Hey,
at the
Marty.
office. Just if you could email Courtney and let her know what size of t-shirt you are, and then
I'm
we'll
thinking about all the coaches too.
text Courtney or Robert at the office, and then they can check and see that for you, because we're very limited with what we have. These were the shirts that we used for the retreat, and we ordered really enough just for the retreat. We do have a few scragglers, just a few things. You can
Wait a
also
minute now. I was ready to pay for them.
well, I
wasn't looking for free.
understand.
I wasn't looking for free. I was ready to
Well,
pay.
yeah, but if we have them, we'll send them to you. You can also on the website, at our webpage, you go to resources, and there is a link that you can go on, and there's t-shirts and polos and different resources that are available with Coaches Outreach logos and stuff that you're more than welcome to purchase as well.
Awesome.
Hey Stan, this might be a good plug for the marriage retreats, because as you heard, Mike noted that those are free to the coaches at the marriage retreat. So that'd be a good opportunity for you to plug the marriage retreats, in addition to a great weekend that the wives and the coaches can have. They can get all kinds of fun perks from Coaches Outreach.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Well,
Awesome.
now that we covered the t-shirts, I think no, I was just kidding. I saw a question come up from was it Russ? Where
Russell Roberts says,
Russell
Mark,
Roberts,
I have an
yes.
experience about not feeling.
Well, I had a question, but the thing that I wanted to say is a few years ago, I had a associate minister from our church ask me to mentor him. And I thought, what on earth? This is mentor a minister. And I didn't tell him no, but I didn't tell him yes. We just kind of let it hang. Just a few months after that, he got into a mistake that happened to be something that I had to warn staff about for 35 years. And I thought, who better to warn him the way I warned my coaches? These mentoring opportunities are set by God, not by us. If you have the opportunity, take it.
Great. And I do understand if someone feels like, I don't have my life together. I've got issues I've got to deal with. Well, the reality is none of us do. None of us have our life all together. We all have areas where we need to grow. And by the way, specifically next semester, it's easy to say, well, I'm no Paul. We're studying Paul as a mentor. I'm not Paul. Well, next semester, we're going to be studying in the book of Esther, and we're going to see neither the mentor nor the mentee had a lot going for them, but God still used them. God loves to use people who are imperfect, and thank the Lord he does, because otherwise he'd have nobody to use. So it's not a matter of, am I up to it? Go in there humbly and say, hey, we've both got to grow. Let's grow together. Let's help each other grow. Rather than you come to me and I'll tell you how to be a mature person. That is not the right attitude for a mentor.
Yeah.
But if somebody sees in you something that they can lean on, that's a work of God. Because chances are you're going to see something in them that they've got that you can grow from. Because all of us have strengths and all of us have weaknesses. And the value of mentoring is that hopefully as you get older, you've got more strengths than weaknesses. But man, some of us, we're going to carry those weaknesses. It's just part of our DNA. and it helps to have somebody to hold us accountable. And who better? It's kind of like your kids will hold you accountable. My son keeps me accountable for how many sweet things I eat because he knows I want to lose weight. He said, "Dad, shouldn't be eating that." You know, it's helpful. He knows how I want to grow, and he can hold me to it. Same thing with a mentee. We can grow together, and there's a lot of joy behind that as well.
Yeah.
Anything else? I don't have the chat box open. Mike, are there any other questions on there?
Nope, that was the last one. Oh, wait a
Okay.
minute. Someone said, well said, Russell. That's
Absolutely.
it. Any other questions, comments, insights?
Let me throw out, as I always like to do, if you've got a meeting, and especially if you're kind of nearby, I can drive to. I would love to sit in on your meeting. If not, I would enjoy Zooming just one time, just to sit and meet with your coaches. It really is enjoyable for me, and hopefully it would be for them. If questions come up, you can always text me, email, call. I'm here for you in whatever way I can be. Don't be shy.
Mark and Mike, this is again Scott Henderson. I do the
Scott
Marcus.
Henderson.
Yeah, I do the Marcus and the Denton study. I always like these. Really love them. I appreciate them. I'll tell you what else I like. I'd like a halftime report during this study. Do you want to maybe consider putting out a week 6 or 7 update and see how our studies are going for all the lay leaders? That might be a good time to take a break and catch up on specific needs, as well as what observations we're seeing and hearing from the coaches. So I'd volunteer to certainly be a part of a halftime around week 6 or week 7, another Zoom call with the lay leaders.
Good idea.
Definitely talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear how their week 6 conversations went with eternal security and rewards.
That's right. That'd be a good time to maybe check in and have a halftime pep talk.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Anything else? Suggestions, comments, questions? All right.
Well, guys, we appreciate you. You are the hands and the feet to Coaches Outreach. Without you, we could write studies, but without you, we couldn't get the studies in the hands of coaches. And so thanks so much for all you do. We appreciate you and value you, and we're here for you to help you any way we can. So if you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate to reach out to Mark or myself. And the office with anything administrative, book wise, reach out to the office if you have extra books or need books. So anyway, with that, we appreciate you, and we say have a great day. Fantastic week.
We'll if you've been a little shy, we'll stick around till the last one of you stays on. So if you just have something you want to talk over that without the whole group here, Mike and I'll stay on for a few more minutes if you'd like to do that.
Thanks,
I've
Mark.
always enjoyed.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
Thank you,
these
Christian.
These get-togethers, even though we're not doing them in person like we used to do, these are so important, and I enjoy getting to see all the different folks on here and get to be share this ministry with you guys, and man, it's just great to see all these faces that I haven't seen before, and man, just we'll be praying for you guys, and hope y'all will be praying for me over here in Coppell. But we're all in this together, so
You sure are.
have a good one.
Thank you, gentlemen. You all take care. Have a good day.
You bet. Have a great
You
one.
too.
Thank you for
Hey,
joining us.
Carter, you've got some female coaches over there in your study,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
I just want to
have
encourage
4.
you to have
Yeah.
4.
4
I
of
want to
them.
encourage you to have at least one of them write me one of those tribute stories,
Okay.
because with the study on Esther, it'd be great to hear from a female coach about how a female or a male, but from a woman's perspective, what that means to have someone mentor in your
Okay.
life. Please
I'll make
encourage
note.
them. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Larry, how are you doing up there in Paris?
Hey, fine, Mark. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you just fine.
Listen, I was just wondering if anybody had any news on the shooting that had up in Oklahoma City Friday night. Dale City.
I didn't
I
know.
did
I
not
didn't
hear
know.
about it.
I didn't know about a shooting in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, then the Dale City Choctaw game.
Well, we don't have a study at either of those schools right now currently. So
Jake Corbin used to be at one of those schools. And
yeah, he's at Dale City now, and I'm not sure. Yeah, they don't have a study there right now.
well, those coaches need our prayers anyway. I think it looks like, I guess they all do. These shootings seem to be getting to be
I just saw 4 people were shot.
right. Yeah, that's all I had heard. I just wondered if anybody knew anything else.
That's the first I've heard about it.
Me
I can
too.
read what I've got here. This is actually on ABC News.
Yeah.
The victims were transported to a hospital with gunshot wounds. One was treated for a wound to her thigh before released. Did not know the conditions of the 3 remaining victims. Other than the shooting victims, one person was treated for a possible broken leg. One of those shot was a student, at least one, but the ages of the victims were not made public. Police received the description of a male suspect who left the scene, but the person was not in custody Friday night.
I just hate to see it get started.
Yeah. Wow. You just never know.
Yeah, that's sad.
At times.
All right, guys. Good time.
All right. We'll be in touch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.